Hi there, I'm Mark, and today's training day. Today we'll be talking about how to get Dundas BI up and running with Docker. Since version 7, we've been able to install Dundas BI on various environments like Windows, Ubuntu, and Red Hat Enterprise Linux, just to name a few. With the release of version 8, we've been able to run Dundas BI on Docker and Kubernetes, with the images required provided on the Docker Hub and the Helm charts provided in Dundas's own Helm repository. If you're interested in seeing how to get Dundas BI running on Linux, check out Off the Charts with Jeff. He has a wonderful video that goes through the entire Linux installation process. Now, let's go ahead and get Dundas BI up and running in Docker. The first thing we'll need to do is ensure that we have the following two images, Dundas BI Setup and Dundas BI Full. Both images are available from the Docker Hub, but if you haven't downloaded the images yet, especially when we get to actually running the commands, then Docker is going to go ahead and download them for you. Now, I've downloaded both, so we can get started by running Dundas BI Setup with the following command. Now, before we actually execute this command, let's take a look at what it's doing here. IT allows for an interactive session, which means that if we need to, we could interact with some prompts. RM is going to go ahead and remove the container once it's completed. Now, this is super useful since we don't actually need that setup container after we complete the setup. And then Dundas BI Setup Latest is the image that we want to use. Now, latest is just to indicate which version of the image I actually want. If we wanted something a little more specific, like 801, we could change latest to 801. Handle databases will handle all database-related items for us. Now, if we include a connection string, and we will, and the database doesn't exist, it'll go ahead and create it for us. If the database exists, but it isn't the correct version, it'll be upgraded. And if it exists and it is the correct version, nothing is going to happen to our databases. Dundas BI App Storage indicates which database provider we'll be using. Now, that's either going to be SQL Server or PostgreSQL. Now, if this isn't included in our command, it'll simply default to SQL Server. Dundas BI AppDB con string, that's just going to contain the actual application database connection string that we'll be using. Dundas BI admin password simply contains the admin account's password for our instance. Dundas BI Docker email is the email address we'll be using when deploying new Dundas BI databases. And this is going to match the email address used on our support site. And then finally, we have Dundas BI Docker key. And this is the key required to deploy those new Dundas BI databases. So now that we know what this command is doing, let's go ahead and execute it. Now, just as a quick side note here, I'm going to be using PowerShell for all of these commands. So with this command executing, we can see that it's running, setting up a few tasks here, doing what it needs to do. This may take a while depending on server configuration, so I'm just going to wait for this to finish. And just like that, we've completed the first step to get Dundas BI up and running with Docker. All that's left for us to do now is run our second command, which will use the Dundas BI full image. And the command that we'll be using is this one. So just like with our setup command, let's go ahead and take a quick look at it before we go ahead and execute this. So we can see we have IT again, which just allows for that interactive session. But we have a P now. Now, P is a pretty neat one because it's going to go ahead and publish a container's port to the host. So in our case, it will map port 80 in the container to port 8080 on the Docker host. Now, name is optional, and it lets us do something pretty neat here. It lets us assign a name to the container. If we don't include this, Docker is automatically going to assign a randomly generated name instead. Again, name is optional. I've gone ahead and included it here though. E is going to let us set up environment variables in the container. And we can see that we have Dundas BI app storage and Dundas BI appdb con string. Now these two will act the exact same way they did when we ran that setup script. And finally, we have Dundas BI full latest. And this is the image that we want to use. Again, if we wanted a specific version, we could always swap out latest with that version number. So let's go ahead and run this command. Now, as we can see, it's getting everything we need up and running and ready to go. But once it completes, we'll be able to navigate to our newly deployed instance of Dundas BI. And I'm going to give this a couple of seconds just to finish up here. And just like that, our deployment is complete. So let's go ahead and access our DBI instance. Look at that. Pretty neat, right? To learn more, visit dundas.com/support or use any of the methods shown below.